saw that there were so many issues that just weren't being addressed. And I just became very concerned that the Canada that I grew up in, that it wasn't going to be there for my children. I believe that our unity is our strength, not necessarily our diversity is our strength, but our unity is our
Yes.
strength. And I believe in a strong democracy.
Hi, and welcome back to the Saved Gen Z. Today, we have an incredibly exciting interview with Dr. Leslyn Lewis, candidate for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. She is a reputed lawyer from the Toronto area. She is a mother, a proud Christian, and the first woman of color to seek the leadership of a major political party in Canada. And she holds a Juris Doctorate from Osgoode Hall Law School, a Master in Environmental Studies from York University, an MBA concentration in Business and the Environment, and a PhD from York University. Before we get started with our interview, please subscribe if you haven't already, and consider hitting that notification bell. So, Leslyn, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So how about we start off with you telling us a bit about who you are and why you are running for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada.
Great. Yes, I'd love to do that. So I'm a loving mother of two. I'm a lawyer. I'm a business owner. I've also taught in universities, various universities, University of Toronto, York University, and at Osgoode Hall Law School. I've been a part of the Conservative Party since around 2009 actively. And in 2015, I was requested by the Honorable Stephen Harper to help in a riding that was undergoing a scandal. And the writ had dropped and there was only 4 weeks left on the election cycle. And so I was required to go in and to set up office and to get a campaign team together and to run a campaign. And we did that. And we came out with one of the highest voting counts in the history of the riding, and also one of the highest voting counts in the GTA for the 2015 election.
Very impressive. I know that you are a proud Christian woman. Can you tell us what denomination you are part of and how your faith has guided you in your life as a lawyer and now as a leadership candidate?
Yes, so I am a Pentecostal Christian, and my faith has basically, I think it's not just who I am, it also informs how I treat other individuals. And so I believe that, because of my faith, I've been able to see things in a more compassionate way. And even though I may differ with somebody on a certain policy point, I always try to make sure that it's respectful and that I also take their position into account, and that nobody's really demonized, that I recognize that people have different opinions and different policy perspectives. And I think the main objective is just recognizing that we all want the best for our country and that we can all work together in reaching that objective.
For sure. That's a good point you made about loving and accepting people. Jesus talks about that, love your neighbor. And that's glad that that is something that has reflected in the way, because, politics can be very nasty sometimes. And I think some politicians could use a bit of the gospel. So I now want to talk about issues that are important to young Canadians. And the first one is free speech, the founding principle of our democracy that is now under threat due to political correctness. What is your plan to protect and promote free speech in Canada? And does that plan include ways to combat social media censorship?
Yeah, and so, a lot of these issues, like I'm just going back to your previous question about, faith and just the fact that it's not just a checkbox for me, and it just defined, me being a more compassionate person and respecting things such as people's freedoms and caring about the environment. And so something such as free speech is very, very important. And I look at the example of, say, in universities, which is supposed to be the institution of higher learning. And we see that many individuals are complaining that their free speech rights are even eroded in an institution of higher learning. And so something like that is very, very disconcerting, because it tells you that this erosion of this fundamental freedom has even seeped into institutions that we have traditionally believed should be upholding these very, very democratic ideals. And so I think it's very important that we have policies as government that reward free speech, and where we have governmental entities or quasi-governmental entities that are dependent upon funding from government and they are not upholding free speech, they should have to answer to that by having their funding either cut back or revoked.
Mm, very good. Derek Sloan has said that he would raise the legal age to purchase marijuana to 25. Is this something that you would do as Prime Minister? And if not, then what is your plan regarding marijuana?
Yeah, I think marijuana, the age of 25 comes into being because that is the age where science has concluded that the brain has fully developed. And we know of the detrimental effects on the developing brain that marijuana has. And so I think a reasonably prudent person would say, if there is something that's negatively impacting on the development of a child or the child's brain, or a young adult's brain, that we as a government should make sure that that is something that we take into account. And so that is a very viable policy to have, that the age of marijuana use should be 25. We have similar policies for alcohol. And so I do believe that if we have determined that 25 is when the brain fully develops, and that marijuana has a negative impact on the brain, then that is the age that we should be aiming for in our policies. If we are going to keep marijuana in place, that should be the age, definitely.
Very good, because I've seen what it does to people my age at my school and other places, like on social media, and it really, you see these kids that in primary school, they were so brilliant, and then they turn to marijuana and they fail their classes and they have no more energy, and it's really just sad to see people destroyed by this drug that's marketed as like cool. So I'm glad that you have this strong policy for that. So now let's talk about abortion. So you have released a clear no hidden agenda policy on the topic, which includes banning sex selective abortion. However, the Conservative Party declaration for policy currently states that, quote, a conservative government will not support any legislation to regulate abortion, end quote. How will you convince Conservative Party members who are eager to win this election to change this party policy statement so that it allows for abortion legislation?
Yeah, so sex-selective abortion is something that's already in the party policy, and so that wouldn't be circumventing that provision that you just read. With respect to the party policy, that is a grassroots initiative, and change happens within the grassroots, within the membership. And so it's not really a leader's position to say, I am going to go and change the party policy. That is something that the grassroots needs to come together and do, and the membership base needs to say that this is what they want done. And so the whole issue of honoring and respecting the sanctity of life is something that we've moved away from it so much in society, that we actually have to start doing the work in respecting the sanctity of life. And so we have to start doing the work in changing hearts and minds outside of even the parliamentary system, so that the members will then have the impetus to go to and change policies to reflect the new reality in society. And so I think that there's a lot of work that has to be done outside of Parliament in order for us to respect the sanctity of life, because truly, I think really right now, with the way that the parliament is constructed, there is not a lot of sympathy for this position. And so we need to, first of all, have people elected who share those values, and the general membership also has to share those values. And so there's a lot of work to be done.
So you made a good point about, educating people about, some facts about the issue. And it's true, because a lot of people who I talk to, they think it's a clump of cells, but science has proven that it's more than a clump of cells, and it's a live baby that has a heartbeat and later a brain. So it's really about changing the stigma that it's an issue that's closed, and that it's just cells, to really being, this is a person.
Yeah, and there's differing opinions on that, and I'm always respectful and cognizant of the fact that 1 in 3 women have had abortions. And so when I do talk about the issue, and I'm very very adamant about my position about the sanctity of life, and that life begins from conception. And for me, it is a human rights issue. And
Me too.
I try to communicate that in a respectful way, that I believe it's a human rights issue, because I believe that life begins from conception, and that all life is sacred.
For sure. You made a good point there about respect. As Christians, our job is not to condemn women who've had abortion. Our job is to love them and embrace them and take care of them. And that's what I find beautiful about all these pro-life organizations, is that they help these women without judgment. They just embrace them. I find that beautiful. So if your bid to be leader of the Conservative Party is unsuccessful, do you plan on serving your community by running to be a member of parliament in the next election?
Well, it is my plan moving forward that I would like to serve in the capacity of some sort of governmental capacity, and I would like to represent a group of constituents in Parliament. And so that is something that is very important to me. And the opportunity came up to run for the leader, but I'm in this race, as I said, to win. And I believe that, we're doing everything in our power to make sure that we do win. And we've done the work. And so I'm very optimistic. But should that optimism fall short, then I would definitely seek a position running for a member of parliament, so that I can continue to represent these key issues and constituents.
Well, yes, and I really believe we need people like you in politics. You are so inspiring and different and strong. And I think that Canada as a whole would really benefit from having you in our political system. So I pray for you, and I wish that, God can use you in his ways to better improve our political system. So let's end our interview with an easy question. And that is, why should people vote for you?
Well, that's a very good question, and I'm not sure that's the easiest question. It's probably one of the hardest things to articulate. But the reason why I put my name forward is because I saw that there were so many issues that just weren't being addressed. And I just became very concerned that the Canada that I grew up in, that it wasn't going to be there for my children. And I wanted to see issues of, a strong economy and affordable living, and just maintaining the Canadian dream and the dream of people being able to own a home, and just maintaining and upholding our fundamental freedoms and the rights of parents to raise their children in accordance with their values, and are making sure that our social safety nets are in place, so our most vulnerable are cared for, such like our seniors and veterans and people on disability and people who need to make sure that the government is there to care for the most vulnerable. So I think it's very important that a person who has these desires, that they're able to reach out to diverse groups, in the cities, and broaden our big tent. And I feel that, our party and our country has gone too far in eroding certain fundamental freedoms, and we need to bring us back. And so I would like to see the direction of the country change, and in a new focus on issues of national unity. I believe that our unity is our strength, not necessarily our diversity is our strength, but our unity is our strength. And I believe in a strong democracy where we are upholding people's fundamental freedoms, and a strong economy, and being fiscally responsible. And that is not a partisan thing, because we've seen that even the Liberals under Chrétien and Paul Martin, they had balanced budgets, and they used the revenues to pay down their debt. And so they did not run deficits. They had surpluses. And so this is something that we have to bring back, and we have to make this a nonpartisan issue, that we are making sure that we're not saddling future generations with debt. And, I think it's very important that the next conservative leader is able to do certain things, like, bring back our big tent concepts where we have divergent perspectives, and that we can focus on the urban centers and bringing new conservatives into the fold, and addressing issues like regional discontent and listening to the discontent that's brewing within the regions and seeking out genuine solutions, and focusing on our environment that has been neglected while building a strong economy and developing our natural resources. So these are some of the issues that I feel that people should vote for me, because these are issues that I care about, and that I believe that I would represent the Canadians in caring about these issues.
Totally. And you made a lot of good points that I can relate to. The Canada that I remember as a child is not the same as today, and the direction it's going to worries me. Same thing with the Conservative Party. I'm worried that the next leader is going to be too, woke to truly champion conservative values. And I really hope that the environment becomes also part of the Conservative Party. For me, like, my parents are scientists, so it's an issue that matters to me, conserving. So I'm really glad that you have all of these platforms to really help better enhance our country and our party. So I would like to thank you for coming on today and sharing your ideas with me.
Well, Ellie, it was so wonderful for to have this opportunity, and I just want to say that what you are doing as a young person is so phenomenal, because you are giving young people an option, a choice, so that they know that there's different ways to vote, there's different nuances within the party, and so just doing this podcast and reaching out to different individuals and the different media outlets. I think this is wonderful that you've started this initiative.
Well, I really appreciate these words. It makes me feel very good about myself. So thank you so much. I know so many people who are voting for you and are inspired by you, and I truly hope that your candidacy and your legacy makes a difference in our country. I hope that you enjoyed this interview. I sure did. And I hope that if you are a member of the Conservative Party of Canada, you will be supporting Dr. Leslyn Lewis. Also, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, because I've got plenty of more exciting interviews coming in the near future. Thank you, and God bless you.